What if Dooku never knocked out Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith? Let's explore the depths of it in the video.
Your swords, please. We don't want to make a mess of things in front of the Chancellor.
You won't get away this time, Dooku.
Very well. It seems I shall have to deal with you myself.
Dooku draws his curved lightsaber, the crimson blade casting eerie shadows across his face. He lunges at the Jedi, sliding through their initial strikes and appearing between them, his lightsaber striking front and then back, forcing the pair to defend. He spins back and forth, keeping them both in check before rounding towards Obi-Wan, aiming to knock him out first. He advances on him, aiming to push him back. Obi-Wan's defensive fighting style keeps Dooku at bay. He checks each thrust and slash before leaping up to avoid a low sweep and counters with a slash to the shoulder. The Count barely avoids this strike, feeling a slight flesh wound. But rather than give Obi-Wan a chance to attack again, he advances further. His lightsaber whirls as he unleashes the full offensive power of his fighting style. Behind him, Anakin tries to help, though Dooku manages to keep him at bay, focusing on avoiding his attacks, not getting bogged down. This seeming dismissal of his efforts only angers Anakin, but Dooku is already moving past him. He continues closer to Obi-Wan, pushing his entire body forward in a thrust aimed at his waist that forces the Jedi Master to pivot aside. But that is exactly what Dooku wants. He suddenly slashes his lightsaber up, and this time Obi-Wan is too slow. It bites deep into his forearm and forces Obi-Wan to his knees. Dooku shoves him against the stairs, where his head knocks against the steps. He is about to finish the Jedi off, but he hesitates, perhaps seeing a bit of Qui-Gon in him. But that hesitation is all Anakin needs. He suddenly rushes forward. Roaring furiously, he slams against Dooku with enough force to send him reeling. The Count stumbles and barely blocks the next few attacks Anakin throws. His normally refined movements are clumsy as he struggles to compose himself. Anakin brings his lightsaber down in a savage downward slash that leaves Dooku stumbling aside. Another blow with the butt of his lightsaber sends him reeling as it hits him square in the jaw. When he tries to compose himself and gets his lightsaber back into a defensive position, Anakin moves faster. His weapon sweeps upward and slices through Dooku's arms. Dooku screams as he falls to his knees, staring at his ruined stumps. Obi-Wan looks out in surprise, his eyes wide as he sees what just happened.
Good. Anakin, finish him. He's too dangerous to be kept alive.
Dooku looks up at Anakin, feeling the darkness inside him growing, just as Palpatine had planned. Only now he realizes that he was not intended to survive this. A moment later, he feels Anakin and his lightsaber pressed against his throat. He closes his eyes and waits for death. But then he hears another voice.
Anakin, don't. He's more valuable alive. He has valuable information we can't lose. He nearly cut down your master, Anakin. He would have killed you next. Do it. Anakin, I'm fine. But think of the galaxy. Think about how many lives we can save if we bring him in. The war could end today.
Anakin's eyes flicker between Obi-Wan and Dooku. The Sith Lord stands poised, but there's a flicker of fear in his eyes. Anakin's grip tightens on his saber, the blade humming ominously. But then he looks down at Obi-Wan, his mentor, his brother. The pain in Obi-Wan's eyes is not just from his wounds, but from what is going to happen.
This isn't you, Anakin. We can end this the right way.
Suddenly, Anakin kicks Dooku to the ground and deactivates his lightsaber, putting them away as he glares down at him, saying he will let him face trial and rot in prison. Obi-Wan nods in approval, sighing with relief as Palpatine's mask briefly slips, but he masks it well and nods.
As you wish. Perhaps you are right. Apologies for that. I do not know what came over me.
The capture of the Invisible Hand turns the battle, leaving the Republic victorious. Being able to apprehend Dooku is even greater, as it effectively cuts off the CIS leadership. The only one left is Grievous, who is rallying the remains of their forces in the Outer Rim. Originally, Obi-Wan was supposed to go after him, but his injuries during his fight with Dooku prevented him from taking part. Instead, Master Plo Koon is sent. This is for the best, as Obi-Wan approaches the Jedi Council with growing suspicions of Palpatine's true intentions. He reports how eager the Chancellor was to get rid of Dooku, as if he was worried that Dooku would reveal something. Anakin argues it's natural for him to wish him dead, as he was their prisoner. It may simply have been the Chancellor overwhelmed with emotions. However, even so, the Jedi Council is not pleased and points out that Palpatine has already exceeded his term limits and that they must keep a close watch on him during these closing days. While most of the Jedi Council return to the front lines, Anakin and Obi-Wan will remain here to keep an eye on the Chancellor. Anakin will serve as their spy, while Obi-Wan acts as his handler to report any information. This news is a double humiliation for Anakin. Not only is he being forced to spy on one of his closest friends, but he must also do so under Obi-Wan's leadership, as if he cannot be trusted on his own. However, he cannot refuse this direct order and carries it out. Palpatine jumps at the opportunity, using this as a way to turn Anakin against the Jedi. When they meet, he gladly offers a listening ear, hearing all of his issues with the Jedi and providing some wise words.
The Jedi like to say they're above politics, above playing favorites, or letting their emotions get the better of them. But I see how they always obey the Senate without question, how pride has blinded them, and now they don't see their faults.
It is a sad truth, my boy, that those in power are often those least deserving to have it. That is the lesson politics has taught me, but also showed me that in times of trouble like this, it is also a time of opportunity.
Opportunity? How can you say that with so much suffering?
Suffering brings change. It makes people question how they live and work for something better. Those in power must either adapt or die. It is why these times are so interesting, and I hope to see the end of it.
You will, Chancellor. I will make sure of it.
That's good. I certainly hope the Jedi survive as well. They have not been doing well in this war. They are in need of dire change.
On the contrary, Chancellor. I think they've changed quite a bit, but not for the best.
What do you mean by that? How would you change them?
He smiles and lets Anakin talk on and on about what he would do. He pays little attention to it, but he can see how the young Jedi opens up, becoming more and more vocal about all his grievances with the Jedi Order. By the time they part ways, these issues are at the forefront of Anakin's mind. When he reports to Obi-Wan, he is curt and insists that there is nothing suspicious about Palpatine. However, Obi-Wan does not seem convinced, and insists that Anakin continue observing him. Although Anakin obeys, he cannot help but feel his frustrations growing at how out of touch the Jedi seem. However, he isn't the only one who is anxious about this. Obi-Wan also spends his time working with Dooku, trying to get information out of him. The Count was taken into custody and placed in the Coruscant prison. However, he has proven to be uncooperative. Dooku has provided multiple demands before he cooperates. He refuses to cooperate with anyone but the Jedi, and demands to be held at the Jedi Temple, insisting he fears for his life in prison, and refuses to risk it by talking there. However, Palpatine has ensured that transferring him would be politically difficult. Dooku is one of the most hated figures in the Clone Wars, and a symbol of how far the Jedi have fallen. He makes sure to remind the Senate of this fact, who refuses to allow it lest they appear like they are sheltering one of their own. This leaves Dooku stuck in the prison. He sits cross-legged in his cell, in a quiet meditation, his new robotic hands spread out as he takes in the Force and tries to make sense of everything that happened. However, peace will not come, as the weight of his recent defeat presses down against him. But the shadows in this prison are restless tonight. Two bounty hunters, legends in their own right, but are now inmates in this cell, make their way down the hall, choosing their path carefully to avoid patrols. Boba Fett, fueled by vengeance for his father's death, and who was caught up in Dooku's schemes, and Cad Bane, who recalls how Dooku has used him as bait to try and capture the Chancellor, letting him rot in prison. Both approach his cell, gripping their weapons, and move like predators closing in on their prey. The door slides open with a hiss that pulls Dooku from his brooding thoughts. He lifts his gaze to see the two bounty hunters. The young bounty hunter raises a stolen blaster.
This is for my father, you cripping coward.
He fires off a shot, but the blaster bolt freezes in midair as Dooku redirects it. Even in defeat, he remains as proud as ever as he raises to his feet, raising his mechanical arms and redirecting it to the wall beside him.
A blaster against a Force user. Your father would be disappointed.
You can tell him yourself.
He suddenly lunges forward, a vibroblade flashing as he slashes at him. Dooku sidesteps the attack and knees the bounty hunter. He dodges the next two swings until Boba leaps at him and knocks him against the wall. The Count groans and shoves the boy off, but the young bounty hunter has a stolen knife and tries to stab at him. Dooku barely avoids it, feeling it graze his side as he hisses. He hooks his leg behind Boba's and throws him off. When Bane rushes at him, he catches his blade and tries to hold it back, but Dooku's strength is not what it once was, and he only manages to push it against the wall. Bane takes the opportunity to grab him by the neck and holds the blade up to Dooku's eye.
And as for using me as bait, should have known better than to trust a Sith.
Guards! Guards!
Not gonna work. We already paid them off.
Oh? And where's my bribe? Obi-Wan stands in the doorway, his lightsaber ignited. Boba turns and fires his blaster, but the Jedi easily deflects these attacks and throws them back. It is a distraction enough for Bane to rush forward with his vibroblade. He strikes at Obi-Wan's maimed hand, making it hard to defend, but he manages to redirect it. The next strike forces Obi-Wan to slide away from the blow. By the time of the third, Obi-Wan is ready and slashes his lightsaber through the blade. Then Boba tries to fire again as he gets up, but feels Dooku's foot pressing against his back and holding him firm. He gasps as he stumbles down. Bane whirls and rushes toward Dooku, but Obi-Wan is faster and rams his body against him, pinning him against the wall. When he pulls back, the bounty hunter slumps against the ground.
A bit barbaric, but nonetheless effective. Thank you, Master Kenobi. However, this surely must prove that my concerns regarding my safety are justified.
Obi-Wan doesn't answer, but looks at the pair. Both had a grudge against Dooku, and both happened to sneak through the facility with stolen weapons. Something is not right here. He calls for backup and has the guards take Dooku to a new cell for the time being. When he reports this to the Jedi Council, he changes his stance and insists that they must take him to the Jedi Temple to be interrogated. The Jedi are slowly won over, especially as he promises he will cooperate if he's in the temple. However, this provides Palpatine with the perfect line of attack, making it seem like the Jedi are coddling Dooku despite his crimes. Although news of the attack has spread, Palpatine has promised to take him into a secure location where it won't happen again. No one is more upset with this than Anakin, who storms out of the Jedi Council chambers after hearing about this. Though Obi-Wan tries to talk him down, the young Jedi remains furious.
Why are we protecting him, Obi-Wan? After everything he's done? After all the lives he's taken?
Because, Anakin, we're Jedi. We don't execute prisoners. Dooku surrendered. He should not be killed in prison. Besides, his knowledge could expose the Sith's entire plan.
The Chancellor promised him safety, yet the Count refuses to cooperate with us.
Anakin, a week ago the Chancellor wanted him executed. He has no reason to trust him. Besides, Dooku was once one of us. Perhaps we can convince him.
You sound just like the Council. Always playing politics. Always protecting your own, no matter what they do. But when it was Ahsoka, where was this mercy? Where was the Council's loyalty then?
Obi-Wan flinches at the mention of Ahsoka, guilt flashing in his eyes.
That was a mistake, Anakin. One I wish I could undo.
But you can't. And now you're protecting him. The man who tried to kill both of us, who led the Separatists. This is your way of making up for it?
I don't expect you to forgive him, Anakin. But this isn't about vengeance. This is about saving lives.
You're wrong. Palpatine agrees with me. Dooku doesn't deserve protection. He deserves justice.
Be careful, Anakin. The Chancellor's influence isn't as pure as you believe. Where is the justice in killing an unarmed prisoner?
We have to do our own justice, especially when the Jedi won't give it. Maybe you're the one who's blinded, Obi-Wan.
Anakin's face darkens. For the first time, a cold distance settles between them. Without another word, Anakin storms out, leaving Obi-Wan alone, the weight of the rift between them settling heavy on his shoulders. Unfortunately, their Jedi Council's petition is rejected, as Palpatine insists that he is to remain under the Republic's custody, not the Jedi. Though they protest, there is nothing they can do. But this news troubles Palpatine.
As always, the Jedi are wise in their precautions and worry, but I must say it gets tiresome at times. Some unkind souls might even believe they are trying to obstruct justice.
Do you believe that, Chancellor?
No, at least not intentionally. The Jedi may not like to admit it, but they prefer to fight with their hearts rather than their heads. Sentiment blinds them just as much as they claim attachment does. I believe perhaps even our good Obi-Wan might not be any different.
Obi-Wan? How could he be attached to Dooku?
He was Qui-Gon's master, was he not? Perhaps he sees some connection between his late master and Count Dooku. Maybe he wishes to preserve his memory in some way. This is simple speculation, but it is worth considering. Lucky for him, he has such a reliable apprentice, such as you.
Anakin frowns as he considers what the Chancellor says. He promises to watch over Obi-Wan and make sure nothing happens. The two remain on barely speaking terms, talking only to give their reports and short updates on what is happening. When Anakin announces the plan to move Dooku to another prison is going through, he observes Obi-Wan's expression, but the Jedi Master's face betrays nothing. The transfer of Dooku is set under the highest security protocols. Gunships hover over Coruscant's skyline, escorting the prisoner's transport. Anakin watches from a distance, his senses alert. He feels a disturbance in the Force moments before chaos erupts. Explosions rock the building as smoke rises from one of the structures. The smoke blocks the gunship's field of vision as a figure leaps down and sprints through the smoke, a blue lightsaber in hand. The clones on the ground ready their blasters and fire, but they are thrown back by the Force. When the guards around Palpatine open fire, the figure ducks underneath them, slashing through their weapons. The figure pulls him aside and begins leading him away from the facility. Anakin springs into action, his lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss. He chases after them, his mind racing with suspicion. It has to be Obi-Wan. Who else would risk everything to protect Dooku? He soon catches up to them just outside the facility, where they try to blend in with the population. But Anakin is right behind them and uses the Force to knock Dooku against the wall. He lunges, his lightsaber trying to sweep at their cloak. The figure turns back and parries his strike. The momentum forces them back, but they manage to direct it away. Anakin doesn't give up so easily and lunges again, trying to slash at them, but the figure sidesteps, arching its back to move under the strike. This is the perfect opportunity to strike, kicking the intruder and sending them sprawling.
I knew it was you, Obi-Wan. You're betraying everything we fought for.
But as he yanks the hood down, Anakin freezes in place, staring down at Ahsoka's face.
Ahsoka? What are you doing here? Did the Jedi put you up to this?
Yes, and they asked for my help, but I'm not here because of them. I'm here because I volunteered.
Anakin's jaw hangs open as he stares at her in shock.
You're helping him? After everything Dooku's done?
I don't trust Dooku, but I trust the Republic even less.
But you trust the Jedi? After they betrayed you? After they tossed you aside?
I don't trust the Jedi, but I do care for the galaxy. Besides, you seem to forget the Jedi were only acting on the Republic's orders. They obeyed without question, just as you're doing now. How can you see the Jedi's flaws, but not see the Republic's? Or should I say the Chancellor's?
He's a good man, Ahsoka. He wants to change things, to fix the problems in the Republic. We just need to trust him.
Do you hear how blind you sound? You see the Republic's flaws, but you refuse to question the Chancellor. You expect the Chancellor to fix everything, Anakin. But that's not leadership. That's blind faith. No one holds him accountable. It's no different from the corruption in the Senate.
Anakin hesitates, her words cutting deeper than her blades ever could.
You were so quick to take Palpatine's word that you never even tried to interrogate Dooku yourself. You kept him alive because it was the right thing to do. You didn't want to take the next step.
Her accusation lingers in the air as she deactivates her sabers. Anakin stares at her, but then at Dooku. He then grabs the Count and slams him against the wall.
All right. You seem to have a lot to say. Tell me the truth, Dooku. No games. What is happening? Who is the Sith Lord?
The truth, Skywalker. The truth is that you are a pawn. Palpatine is the Sith Lord you've been searching for.
You're lying.
Think, Anakin. The assassination attempts, the manipulations, none of it happens without someone in the Senate pulling the strings. And who has been pushing you to distrust the Jedi? Who insists you rely on him alone?
Anakin's mind races, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The Chancellor's subtle manipulations, his constant undermining of the Jedi Council. It all begins to make a horrifying kind of sense.
I have so much more evidence, but I cannot produce it at the moment.
Still, this evidence is already enough to leave doubt in Anakin's mind. It begins gnawing at him, and he looks away. The two, instead, begin to contact the Jedi Council. Hours later, after much silence, the Chancellor arrives to investigate the matter personally. But sooner does he step off the transport does he see Anakin marching back with a hooded figure in tow. Palpatine spreads his arms out in greeting and smiles.
Ah, my boy. I see that I was wrong to worry after all. It appears you had the situation under control this whole time. Tell me, who was the infiltrator? I assume Obi-Wan?
On the contrary, Chancellor. Obi-Wan wasn't anywhere near the prison tonight. He's in the Senate, right now, reporting your crimes with Dooku.
The figure removes their hood and reveals Ahsoka's face. Palpatine's calm facade falters, his eyes narrowing dangerously.
You dare conspire against me?
Anakin's hand inches toward his lightsaber, but Palpatine is faster. With a swift motion, he ignites his crimson blade, lunging forward with unparalleled ferocity. Any doubt and his allegiance disappears entirely as Palpatine attacks. Anakin is ready, though, and turns this attack, knocking the Chancellor towards Ahsoka, who rushes at him with a quick flurry of attacks. However, Palpatine is not as helpless as they think, as he regains his balance and counters all these strikes, throwing the pair back. Cursing, he unleashes a wave of Force lightning on them. This time, it is Anakin who redirects the attack and advances towards him. He ducks under any follow-up attacks and swings his lightsaber down at him. Palpatine meets these attacks. His power is obvious as the dark energies radiate off of him. Rather than being thrown back like Dooku, he holds his ground. Gritting his teeth, he shoves him back and tries to throw a series of powerful strikes, fueled by the Force. Rather than meet these attacks head-on, Anakin avoids them just as Obi-Wan does, as Ahsoka comes from behind, striking at Palpatine's feet to get him off balance. He stumbles out of the way, trying to avoid being stabbed as Anakin comes forward. But instead of falling, he slides between their blades and throws the Force out to send Anakin back. Then he turns to face Ahsoka, bringing his lightsabers down, leaving her barely able to block the attacks. He smirks and then throws a sweeping strike, letting the dark energies flow through him in this attack. The power in it sends Ahsoka flying back, but as this happens, Anakin rushes at him, and his heavy blows come falling like rain. Palpatine shifts strategies again, focusing on fighting defensively against Anakin, halting his attacks and chuckling.
Yes, I can feel the anger in you. Let it flow freely, and use it.
It's just the Force I'm relying on to defeat you. Just distracts you for a bit.
His eyes widen as Ahsoka comes from behind. Suddenly, one of her lightsabers managed to slash across his thigh. Palpatine hisses and hops back, turning around but feeling his leg shaking. Cursing, the two attack once again. Their movements are perfectly coordinated, giving Palpatine little room to maneuver and leaving him on the defensive. Finally, Ahsoka lands a critical blow, disarming Palpatine momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, Anakin delivers the final strike, his blade piercing through the Sith Lord's chest. Palpatine's screams echo through the facility before he collapses. By the time they return to the city, Obi-Wan and Dooku have finished their testimony, which is enough to convince the Senate of Palpatine's guilt. Anakin pays close attention to this. After his recent talk with Ahsoka, he is convinced of the need to reform the Republic. As preparations are made to go after Palpatine's loyalists under the direction of Dooku, Anakin and Obi-Wan turn their attention to the Jedi. They are convinced of their corruption and both push to begin reforming the Order as well. In particular, they go after the Jedi who they feel have enabled the corruption and inefficiencies in the Order. However, Ahsoka and Padme work to win back the people's trust. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.